Have you ever noticed how easy it is to open an app and start talking, but strangely difficult to send a message to a real friend? Imagine this situation. It is late at night. Something is bothering you. Maybe you are stressed, confused, or just feeling a little lonely. You unlock your phone, open a chat window, and start typing everything that is on your mind. But instead of texting a friend, you are talking to an artificial intelligence. This might sound unusual at first, but it is happening more and more often. Around the world, millions of people are having long conversations with AI systems about their worries, ideas, and even personal problems. Some ask for advice. Others simply want someone or something that will listen. But why is this happening? Why would someone choose to talk to a machine instead of a friend who knows them? On this channel, Did You Already Know? We explore surprising psychological patterns behind everyday behavior. And today, we are going to uncover something fascinating. The real reasons people are increasingly turning to artificial intelligence for conversation instead of the people in their lives. Psychology research, behavioral science, and technology studies reveal that this shift is not random. In fact, there are several powerful reasons behind it. From the fear of being judged, to the comfort of instant responses, to the strange way our brains react to digital conversations, the answers are more complex than most people realize. By the end of this video, you will understand why talking to AI can sometimes feel easier than talking to a friend, what scientists are discovering about this behavior, and what it might mean for the future of human relationships. Not long ago, the idea of having a real conversation with a machine sounded like science fiction. Computers could process numbers, store files, or search information, but they were not something people would turn to for emotional conversation. That has changed dramatically in the last few years. Today, conversational AI systems are designed to simulate dialogue in a way that feels natural. They respond quickly, adapt to what you say, and continue the conversation without hesitation. For many people, this creates a surprising feeling. It starts to feel like someone is actually listening. Researchers in psychology and human-computer interaction have studied this phenomenon for years. One concept often discussed in these studies is called social presence. This refers to the sense that another mind is present during a conversation, even if that presence is created by technology. When an AI responds in a clear and thoughtful way, the brain can interpret that response as social interaction. Another important factor is emotional safety. When people talk to friends, they often worry about how their words will be interpreted. Will the other person judge them? Will they misunderstand the situation? Will the conversation become awkward? With artificial intelligence, those concerns often disappear. The system does not react with visible disappointment, sarcasm, or frustration. It simply continues the conversation. For someone who feels anxious about sharing personal thoughts, this environment can feel surprisingly comfortable. Several behavioral studies have shown that people are often willing to share personal information with digital systems when they believe those systems are neutral and non-judgmental. In some experiments, participants reported feeling less pressure when answering questions from a computer compared to speaking with another person. This does not mean people believe AI is human. Instead, many users treat it like a tool for thinking out loud. They explain problems, explore ideas, and organize their thoughts through conversation. In this way, AI becomes something similar to a digital sounding board. For example, someone might describe a difficult situation at work, ask for possible ways to handle it, and use the response as a starting point for their own decision. Others might talk through feelings of stress or frustration simply because writing the words helps them process the emotion. What makes this behavior interesting is that the conversation itself becomes part of how people think. Instead of keeping their thoughts inside their heads, they externalize them through dialogue with a system that responds instantly. And for many users, That instant response is the beginning of a much bigger shift in how conversations happen in the digital age. To understand why many people choose to talk to artificial intelligence instead of friends, we also need to look at something deeper: the hidden pressure inside human conversations. Talking to another person may seem simple, but psychologically it can be surprisingly complex. Every conversation carries invisible risks. People worry about how they sound, how their words might be interpreted, and whether they will be judged for what they say. Psychologists often refer to this challenge as the difficulty of self-disclosure. Self-disclosure means revealing personal thoughts, emotions, or experiences to someone else. While sharing can strengthen relationships, it also makes people vulnerable. Once something is said, it cannot be taken back, and the reaction of the other person can shape how safe someone feels in the future. Because of this, the brain constantly evaluates social situations. Is this the right moment to talk about something personal? Is the other person in the mood to listen? Could this conversation change the relationship? These silent questions create hesitation. Even with close friends, people sometimes decide not to bring up a problem because they do not want to seem dramatic, negative, or burdensome. Another factor is social fatigue. Modern life already requires constant interaction. Work meetings, messages, group chats, and social media notifications can make communication feel overwhelming. After a long day, the idea of explaining a complicated emotion to another person may feel exhausting. Artificial intelligence removes many of these barriers. There is no need to worry about interrupting someone. There is no risk that the other person is too busy, distracted, or emotionally unavailable. The system responds immediately and continues listening without frustration. This difference can make AI conversations feel mentally lighter. People do not need to carefully shape every sentence or analyze the other person's facial expressions, tone of voice, or possible hidden reactions. In psychological terms, the interaction carries much lower social cost. The user can experiment with ideas, ask unusual questions, or express confusing emotions without worrying about embarrassment. That freedom explains why some people begin using AI conversations as a way to process their thoughts before talking to anyone else. Instead of going directly to a friend, they first explore the situation in a private digital space where nothing feels socially risky. And once that habit forms, it can slowly change the way people approach conversations in their everyday lives. Another powerful reason people turn to artificial intelligence instead of friends is something surprisingly simple: availability. Human relationships depend on timing. A friend might be at work, sleeping, busy with family, or dealing with their own problems. Even when someone cares deeply about you, they cannot always respond at the exact moment you need to talk. Technology changes that expectation completely. With AI, conversation is always available. It does not matter if it is early morning, late at night, or the middle of a stressful moment. The response appears within seconds. There is no waiting, no uncertainty about whether someone will reply, and no feeling that you might be interrupting another person's day. Behavioral scientists who study digital habits often highlight the importance of immediacy. The human brain tends to favor systems that provide quick feedback. When a response happens instantly, the interaction feels smooth and satisfying. Over time, this can reinforce the habit of returning to the same system whenever a thought or question appears. Compare this to messaging a friend. You might send a long message explaining what is on your mind, and then wait. Minutes pass, sometimes hours, occasionally even days. During that time, the mind keeps returning to the unanswered message. Did they read it? Are they ignoring it? Are they too busy to respond? This waiting period introduces uncertainty, and uncertainty creates mental tension. Artificial intelligence removes that tension completely. The conversation continues without pauses. Questions receive immediate answers. Thoughts can flow continuously without interruption. This constant availability can make the interaction feel reliable in a way that human communication often cannot guarantee. The system is always ready, always responsive, and never too tired to listen. However, this convenience also begins to shape behavior. When people become used to instant responses, slower human conversations may start to feel less satisfying. Waiting for a reply from a friend suddenly feels longer than it used to. Over time, this shift in expectations can subtly influence how people choose where to direct their thoughts. When the brain learns that one option always responds immediately, it becomes natural to return to that option again and again. And that is where the relationship between convenience and conversation becomes much more complicated than it first appears. There is another fascinating reason why people sometimes feel more comfortable opening up to artificial intelligence than to other humans. Psychologists call it the online disinhibition effect. This effect describes a pattern researchers have observed for many years in digital communication. When people interact through technology instead of face-to-face conversation, they often feel less restrained. In other words, they say things online that they might hesitate to say in person. Several factors contribute to this effect. One of them is the absence of direct social signals. During a normal conversation with a friend, we constantly read facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice. These signals help us understand how the other person feels about what we are saying. But they also make us more cautious. If someone raises an eyebrow, looks confused, or reacts with surprise, we immediately become aware that our words are being evaluated. This awareness can cause people to filter their thoughts before speaking. When interacting with an AI system, those signals are completely absent. There are no facial expressions, no awkward pauses, and no visible reactions. The conversation becomes purely focused on the words themselves. Because of this, people often feel safer sharing thoughts that might seem embarrassing, complicated, or difficult to explain. Studies in human-computer interaction have shown that individuals sometimes disclose sensitive information more easily to digital systems than to other people. For example, early research in computer-assisted interviews discovered that participants were more likely to answer honestly about personal behaviors when responding to a computer rather than speaking directly to another person. The absence of social judgment created a more relaxed environment for disclosure. This pattern continues in modern digital tools. Some people use AI conversations as a form of structured reflection. They describe situations in detail, ask questions about their own reactions, and explore different perspectives. In many ways, the process resembles journaling. The difference is that instead of writing silently on a page, the user receives responses that guide the flow of thought. This interactive element can make the process feel more engaging. The conversation moves forward step by step, helping the person organize their ideas and emotions more clearly. However, while this openness can be helpful for personal reflection, it also raises an important question. If people become increasingly comfortable sharing their deepest thoughts with artificial systems, what might that mean for the way they communicate with the real people around them? That question leads us to a side of this trend that researchers and psychologists are starting to examine more carefully. While the convenience and emotional comfort of AI conversations can be helpful, researchers are also beginning to ask an important question. What happens if people start relying on these systems too much? Human relationships are not always easy, but that difficulty plays an important role in emotional development. Conversations with friends involve negotiation, empathy, disagreement, and patience. These social challenges help people develop communication skills and emotional resilience. When someone talks with artificial intelligence, many of those challenges disappear. The system does not become impatient, interrupt the conversation, or react emotionally. It responds calmly and consistently. At first, this can feel incredibly refreshing, especially for someone who is tired of complicated social interactions. However, psychologists warn that if AI becomes the primary place where people process their emotions, it could gradually reduce the amount of practice they get in real human communication. Think about how friendships normally grow. People share experiences, misunderstand each other sometimes, repair those misunderstandings, and gradually build trust. These moments require vulnerability and effort, but they are also what creates strong connections. If someone replaces many of those moments with conversations that happen only with a machine, an imbalance may appear. The person may become more comfortable explaining their thoughts to a system that always responds politely, but less comfortable navigating the unpredictability of human reactions. Another concern discussed by technology researchers is the possibility of emotional substitution. This happens when a tool designed to assist people begins to fill roles that were traditionally part of human relationships. For example, someone might begin by asking AI for advice about a stressful situation. Over time, they might return for reassurance, validation, or emotional support. None of these uses are necessarily harmful on their own, but if the system becomes the first and only place where someone turns during difficult moments, social isolation can slowly increase. Experts often emphasize that technology works best when it complements human interaction rather than replacing it. Artificial intelligence can be useful for organizing thoughts, learning new perspectives, or practicing how to approach a difficult conversation. But the deeper emotional benefits of friendship, shared experiences, empathy, laughter, and real understanding still come from interactions between people. As AI continues to become more advanced and widely available, society may need to think carefully about how these tools fit into everyday life. The goal is not to avoid them, but to make sure they strengthen human connection instead of quietly replacing it. So the next time you see someone opening an AI chat instead of texting a friend, it may not be as strange as it first appears. Psychology and behavioral research suggest that several forces are working together. Artificial intelligence offers something many conversations with humans cannot always provide: instant responses, a space without judgment, and the freedom to express thoughts without worrying about how another person might react. For many people, these systems become a place to think out loud, organize emotions, or explore ideas before sharing them with someone else. In that sense, AI is not necessarily replacing friendship, but it is changing how people process their thoughts and conversations. At the same time, researchers continue to remind us that human relationships remain essential. Real friendships involve unpredictability, empathy, shared memories, and emotional depth that technology cannot fully reproduce. As artificial intelligence becomes a normal part of daily life, the real challenge may not be choosing between AI and friends. Instead, it may be learning how to use technology in a way that strengthens our connections with the people around us. Now, we would love to hear your perspective. Have you ever talked to an AI about something that you did not feel comfortable telling a friend? Or do you think conversations like this should always stay between real people? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you think. And if you enjoy exploring the psychology behind everyday behavior, do not forget to follow Did You Already Know for more surprising insights.